streaming.
Hey everybody, welcome to the RetroBlasting live stream. We are back with a Restoration 101 Q&A. I've got a number of people, including Melinda and Rebecca behind camera, who are going to be feeding me questions. If you have any questions while we actually do a live stream restoration. I know you guys requested that a while back, and so we're going to be doing a live stream friendly live restoration while we discuss restoration tips. The first thing I want to do is just go over some of the basics. So one of the things that's most important when it comes to vintage toy restoration is just having a good selection of screwdrivers. So for example, you know, I've had this one for a long time. It's a interchangeable bit screwdriver that a lot of people have asked me about. I've had this since the beginning of the channel. This is ideal when you want to have a lot of different bit sizes at the same time. The problem is that the design of the screwdriver, it's pretty thick at the top because you have these interchangeable bits. And what results from that is that sometimes, say if you're working on a transformer or you're working on a toy where the plastic is actually really, the plastic shell that you're trying to separate is pretty deep, this configuration doesn't allow for the screwdriver head to get far enough down. So you want some dedicated screwdrivers as well. What I recommend is picking up not so much one of these. This is similar. This is a precision set. This is similar to this one. But what I would recommend instead is also getting a set of dedicated screwdrivers. They come in a set. They're like precision electronics screwdrivers. Just get yourself a set of these as well, because they have the shaft right here that will allow you to repair transformers and things like that, where these other screwdrivers are fairly useful, but they will impede you with certain toy configurations and the way certain toys are built. Now, I have a few toys here to show some of my restoration projects I'm about to work on. This was a donation from Randall Talbert. Thank you, Randall, for sending this to us. This is one of the Kenner Aliens loaders. You know, it's the famous one that Sigourney Weaver, you know, used in Aliens. Get away from her, you bitch! But the arms, they're not secure anymore. The tabs broke, and I have to figure out a way to do that. So that's going to be coming up in an additional restoration video that we're going to do dedicated to this toy, because this is going to require some additional thinking. I think I'm going to have to drill these out and find some new material to create the posts. So, but I just want to have this on the table. The one we're going to restore for you today is going to be the Mego Buck Rogers Starfighter from 1979. I've gotten a lot of requests about this vehicle since the beginning of RetroBlasting, and especially when I did a recent Unplugged video where I was doing some talking, and this happened to be on the table. So people were like, wow. So we're going to be doing that in a minute.
Question.
Yes, question.
Regarding tools, any thoughts on regarding precision hex drivers?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the question was about precision hex drivers. I haven't found many toys yet that require hex drivers. There are a few that I've run into, not all of them. But you often get with like these precision screwdriver sets, you will get a few hex tools in there. What I call the RetroBlasting screwdriver has a number of bits in the handle that are hex drivers that you can use as well.
Also, somebody asked about, they got an old Joe thing that had some dirt in it. What should they do?
For cleaning, for general cleaning, I appreciate you asking me the question. It's about a dirty G.I. Joe and how do you safely clean it. The rule of thumb is you go from least intensive to most intensive as needed. So, for example, with a G.I. Joe, the first thing you'd want to do is get yourself a soft bristled toothbrush And then you want to use Dawn soap with very lukewarm water. You don't want to go crazy with the heat because the heat can affect the plastic, and the plastic is already really old. So using a soft bristled toothbrush and Dawn soap, which can also help eliminate some of that plastic stickiness, you try that first. Then if that doesn't get off everything that you need, you're going to have to start thinking about ways to spot clean. Certain things are never going to come out. So for example, when Melinda is working on My Little Ponies, the vinyl that it's made out of, a lot of kids seem to use highlighter markers on those for some reason, and those highlighter marks rarely, if ever, can come out because of the way that the chemicals react with the plastic that they're made of, that the ponies are made of. What I like to do with Tough Gunk on G.I. Joes and things like that, if it's not coming off, first I do the Dawn soap, and normally that really gets rid of a lot of it. But after that, there are some products that other people have sworn by. They're called autoplastic restoratives. You get them like black magic sprays, but it's called like a plastic or dashboard restorer. And what it does is it's supposed to stabilize the old plastic and keep it, from breaking down and getting sticky. That's more for stabilization, I know, than cleaning. But what I would recommend is only in extreme cases try things like spot cleaning with a Q-tip with lighter fluid, something like that, if it's just a really tough piece of gunky material, because the lighter fluid, it'll probably get the sticky stuff off, but if you're not careful and don't test it first, lighter fluid can also, remove certain marker colors, and therefore I often wonder if it could potentially remove paint as well. And you certainly don't want to accidentally remove like a chest emblem off of a Cobra soldier or something like that. So I would not recommend that. As a matter of fact, with most Cobra soldiers, I wouldn't even want to put a toothbrush over those emblems. I would almost just very gently with Dawn soap sort of do a finger clean over it and then rinse. As far as tough gunk, I haven't really seen tough gunk or dirt on an action figure that would require super intensive stuff. I know in some cases people have boiled their action figures to try and get rid of certain stains or mold or things like that.
What about dirt in the screw holes?
Dirt in the screw holes. The most important thing when it comes to G.I. Joes and the screw hole in the back is if there's dirt in there, rinse it out and then determine if the screw head still has teeth in it, and if it's rusted to the point that it's domed or capped or whatever you want to call it, where literally the screw head has flaked away and you can't get at it. That's where it gets a little dicey, because then you're going to have to use a power drill to drill the head off the screw, but without accidentally drilling into the figure itself and damaging the torso. I've only successfully removed the screw head on a G.I. Joe once, and I've failed twice. So you have to be very slow and very deliberate with the right size bit, and you have to test for each one, because the bit size is almost determined by the figure and the amount of corrosion that's in there. You're just going to have to be real careful. I wish I had better advice for you on that.
There's a bunch of other questions.
Yeah, go for it.
Is there any way to tidy up yellowing of Star Wars vehicles' seams where they glued the halves together, e.g. the AT-ST?
Is there any way to tidy up the yellowing on seams of a Star Wars vehicle such as the AT-ST? A lot of the discoloration that I've found on that glue that turns it yellow comes from age. A lot of people are fighting the signs of aging. They're fighting the signs of aging on their faces, and they're fighting it with their toys. I'm not trying to give you a cop-out answer with this, but what I am trying to do with the answer I'm about to give you is try and get you to change your thinking a little bit. These toys are always going to be 35, 40 years old, and they're not getting any younger. Depending on what conditions they were in, whether they were stored in a shed or whether they were stored in an attic, they're going to have individual problems depending on their storage conditions over their lifetime. And they're all getting older. Some things I have learned to just reconcile and be okay with. I don't go real intently in my personal collection for a lot of intense de-yellowing or things like that. I know the process is behind it, but you run the risk when you're trying to bring it back to toy store aisle perfection, you run the risk of doing further damage to the toy, because what you're going after is an aesthetic issue. The glue is just aging, but the glue is still holding the bond on that Scout Walker. So what I would recommend is that you try and make peace with it and leave it alone, because going after that glue and trying to get it to come off, I mean, maybe you would have some luck with some sort of not solvent, but some sort of, you know, glue and residue remover. But the problem is that I've heard horror stories with things like Goo Gone, where it gets glue off real well, but depending on what kind of plastic the toy's made from, it could also take away the plastic as well. Same with acetone. Acetone is really good at taking stuff off. It's also really good at melting and destroying plastic. So you really don't want to use that if you don't have to.
Apart from the USS Flag, due to sheer size and myriad pieces, what's been the most challenging refurb or restoration?
What's been the most challenging refurb apart from the USS Flag? It would probably be something with electronics in it, like the Arco MCB-1, which wasn't built as well as, say, a Hasbro or a Kenner toy of that period. And so I was literally chasing wires that were, you know, constantly breaking their solders and having to resolder them and then try and get the whole thing back together. That was pretty challenging. Another one that I felt was challenging was not the Millennium Falcon. Tim, what was the one that you and I mentioned earlier today that was you remembered was pretty challenging?
The Cobra jet.
Oh, right, the Night Raven. Thank you. The Night Raven was pretty challenging too, because the landing gear assembly broke underneath, and I had to devise another way to reattach that front landing gear and make it functional. And if you watch that restoration series, I actually used a part of another Night Raven to make that happen, and not the part you would think I would use, but I tried to improve upon the design to make it more durable. Those were probably my most two challenging.
Are there certain cleaning products you would or wouldn't use with certain plastic types?
Any products I wouldn't use with certain plastic types? Well, as I said, I really shy away from things like acetone that are very harsh. I shy away from Goo Gone. I have never used that. I know some people swear by it. I have not used it.
I love acetone for ponies.
Acetone for ponies is different. My Little Ponies, they're made out of a more vinyl material, and so the acetone doesn't affect them. But hard plastic toys like action figures, they do not handle acetone well. Do not put acetone on action figures.
Is there any way to fix G.I. Joe joints like elbows and knees that are loose?
Any way to fix G.I. Joe joints like elbows and knees? Yes, there is. You can use clear nail polish. What you do is you take the leg apart very carefully, because the knee has a post, and then you lightly coat that knee post in the clear nail polish. And you put a few layers on it, you let it dry, and you're essentially putting nice layers back on the post that wore away as you use the knee throughout childhood. So then when you put it back together, it's slightly thicker than it was before, and so you get that posable friction joint. Now, I'm not going to say it's going to last forever, but it's not outside the realm of possibility that every few years you know, do a maintenance job and you recoat it again. So yeah, that works well. Any other questions at the moment?
I mean, there are a lot.
Okay, go ahead.
Do you know a good place to get better quality vintage repro stickers?
Good place to get quality vintage repro
Vintage
stickers.
Star Wars.
Oh, vintage Star Wars repro stickers. Well, as I said in my Slave 1 video, if you need repro Star Wars stickers, the eBay seller Zach Paris, Z-A-C Paris, sells really nice die-cut Star Wars reproduction sticker sets. So I would highly encourage anybody who's asking a question like that to please check out all of our restoration videos as well, because a lot of this information is peppered throughout there too, and you might find other tips and tricks that aren't going to be answered here.
What's your solution to prevent action figures from slowly rotting in the blisters?
Prevention of action figures slowly rotting in the blisters. One would be storage conditions. You want to make sure you have a cool environment with low humidity, not super low because you don't want the packaging to dry out. But you want your humidity, I keep my humidity in this room around 35–40% max. You also want to make sure that, like with G.I. Joes, you know, with G.I. Joes, it's going to be a crapshoot because they have that O-ring inside them, and I've seen some mint condition figures that are just broken in half in the bubble. But that's the nature of their construction. You know, with He-Man, it might happen too because they have the rubber bands in the legs. So it just all depends on what you value.
What's the most frequently yellowed Star Wars toy?
The most frequently yellowed Star Wars toy, probably any of the white ones. So it would be original Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Stormtroopers. Those are the common ones. And then with G.I. Joes, it's the same thing. With G.I. Joes, you've got discoloration that happens a lot with Storm Shadow and Snow Job. Spirit, it happens a lot with Spirit with his blue shirt. I don't know why that occurs, but that light blue tends to discolor and toward a green. And that happens a lot. So you want to watch out for that. But really, it's not so much watching out for it because, yes, you can reverse these things with certain chemical processes, but as a lot of people have said online and as has been evidenced, you can do this and then it will come back faster and stronger later if you're not storing it well or you're just unlucky. I have made peace with yellowing for my collection. I don't worry about it as much. I know that's not an answer a lot of people like, but it really helps me not waste a lot of time trying to chase this dragon that I'm never going to catch.
Is there any way to restore action figure packages like repair card creases and plastic bubble smudges?
Restoring packaging is really, it's really dicey because you can do it. There is paper restoration is a whole discipline. There are people out there that have effectively restore Golden Age comic books. They can restore the covers. They can restore the luster of the color. They can get rid of creases. They can, they iron them under newspapers and stuff like that and try and get certain things to go away. But what you're doing with that is you're headed into an area where the fraud becomes more insidious. And you know me, I love to restore and keep things working. When it comes to packaging, it would almost be more cost effective in my mind to invest in one of the really nice reproduction boxes if you just have to have a perfect box. They're out there. There are people that make the boxes for display purposes, and they responsibly put nice lettering on the undersides that said this is a repro box so that you can display it and it looks great, but you're not going to be defrauding anybody when you sell it later.
Any tips on restoring loose joints on vintage Star Wars figures? Is it the same?
Loose joints for vintage Star Wars figures. David at Toy Polloi, he has if you haven't seen the Toy Polloi YouTube channel, go check it out. He's like a toy repair wizard. He's fearless, and he's made some amazing not discoveries, but he's developed some amazing techniques to restore toys. And
he also has custom stickers on his site.
Oh yeah, David has custom stickers on his site too. You can download the PDFs and print them out on sticker paper. But one of the ways he repairs Star Wars vintage figure joints is he uses pipe threading nylon tape, and he'll take a section of it off and then he'll wrap it into the joint, and it's a permanent fix to keep those joints from flopping around. It's actually really, really well done. We did it on Timothy Ward's R5D4 for the legs on his R5D4.
Have you tried restoring the SDF-1, the transforming one? Any thoughts on restoring vehicle foot pegs?
Have I tried restoring the SDF-1 Robotech? No, I don't own it. I haven't attempted a restoration on that. As far as restoring foot pegs
for
vehicles, the hard part with that is you have to find the material that you're going to use. It's got a color match, and then you have to epoxy bond it down onto the broken area where the foot peg used to be. I haven't attempted that. I know some people have. I know some people have 3D printed the little foot pegs that go in the Kenner cardboard playsets as well. So you can find reproductions of those. But you can also find the originals a lot too. You can find handfuls of the originals like I did for the Creature Cantina Adventure set, which is behind me over here. And you don't pay terribly much for them. So if you watch, you can get the vintage originals, which is always preferable.
When is it going too far to restore a toy?
When is it going too far to restore a toy? Well, as you've seen on our channel, we have done things going as far as, putting new stickers on the toy when the old stickers have disintegrated. Some people say that goes too far. Some people, in any hobby, you're going to have people on the extremes. So the extreme on one side is it's laissez-faire, do anything and everything to restore the toy, keep it as minty original as it can be through chemical baths and all kinds of stuff. I think that's extreme. The other extreme is when you say, the moment a sticker falls off, never replace it. The moment a piece falls off, never replace it. And I'm like, well, who are you protecting? Are you protecting the person you're talking to, or are you trying to delude yourself into the idea that you're protecting the value of your collection? Toy collecting is about enjoyment. So you have to choose what's going too far with your collection. When it goes into an area where you don't enjoy it anymore, or it becomes a concern for you, that's your mark. I would say that for me, restoring function is always essential. So like with the Night Raven, for example, restoring the function of that landing gear I thought was essential. Will I be able to sell that Night Raven at a premium price? No, and I'm not planning on selling these. So I'm using them for the web channel, and I enjoy these objects. So I don't have the same mentality that a lot of people do. If, on the other hand, you are in it for the investment, you're not wrong. If you're in it for the investment, you don't need to be restoring these toys at all. If you're in it to win it with, rising values and money, you need to keep your hands off all your toys and just let them be what they are. It all depends on your objective.
We're good for now.
Oh, we're good for now. Okay. Well, let's get started on this restoration. I have this 1979 Mego Buck Rogers Starfighter here. As you can see, it's a shell. Now, I'm not going to go so far as to wash it, obviously, because I'm in a live stream, but I'm going to put parts back on it and take this thing apart and make it whole again. The Mego Buck Rogers Starfighter was, like all of the Mego toys, notoriously fragile and not very well made. The stickers, as you can see here, are not in great shape. They're not easily reproed, although sticker sheets and reproductions of the stickers do exist online, but you'd then have to print them yourself, which I might do down the road. So what I'm going to do first is I want to show you some of these marks on the back. These marks, they don't really come off with my fingernail, and this thing is pretty worse for wear. I mean, this is how I got it. No parts. And so this would be a great time to use Magic Eraser, which is this product right here. Magic Eraser, you use it with a little water, you cut a little swatch off of the sponge that's inside here, and then you can oftentimes get off a lot of these marks. Now, some critics of Magic Eraser, the hardcore, purists, will say that when you use it, you are sort of abrading off the shiniest layer of the plastic. And you are. But consider the example. I mean, no one's saying that we're doing this to some near mint example of a Starfighter. If you've got a toy that looks like this, there's nowhere for it to go but improve. Assuming you're not using acetone, because if you use acetone, you're going to eat through all of it. But if you're using Magic Eraser to clean this up and make it look more presentable, because I've been in this game long enough to know that soap and water is not going to get all this stuff off. A soft bristled toothbrush might not get a lot of this staining off. Now, what I'm not going to do with this Starfighter, like I said, I'm probably not going to go to the effort of dunking this Starfighter in a Retro Bright solution or hair peroxide to try and whiten it up. And the reason that I'm not is because the Mego Starfighter plastic is real brittle anyway. It wasn't well made to begin with, and so I don't want to compromise that down the road, because those chemicals can cause brittleness on the plastic if used too often, too frequently, or in the wrong mixture. So I'm not going to be doing that. But I would recommend on an example like this to try some Magic Eraser to spot clean some of these areas, to clean it up and make it look nice. And I will be doing that outside the live stream. I'll post photos to show you how that looks on the Facebook page. So let's get started with this. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6 screw holes on the bottom. And we're going to be using one of our handy dandy screwdrivers here. So we're going to take this thing apart, and the reason we're taking it apart is because even though most of the parts on the Starfighter,
So we can see it.
even though most of the parts on the Starfighter are clipped onto it right out of the box, the landing gear, which is missing from this Starfighter, has to be installed with the halves open. So let me get these screws out. That one just fell on the floor. I'll get that in a minute. One of the sad things about the acrimony that has happened between toy restorers and collector purists is that there's, as with all camps these days, there doesn't seem to be a lot of room for tolerance between the two camps. And when that happens, one of the camps gets attacked a lot, which is the toy restorer community. And what I'm about to tell you is that there are some toy restorer enthusiasts who are very talented, like David Moss at Toy Polloi, but they also make the parts. And some of them have, and here's the two halves now open. And there's nothing left in there as far as the landing gear. That landing gear is gone. Fell out probably in some backyard in the early 80s at some point. So I'm going to show you these parts here real quick. This is a reproduction landing gear for the Mego Starfighter. It is 3D printed, or I think it's 3D printed. Even has the hinge in the front foot. And this was made by a parts replicator named, his handle was Hot Dogs. And when I ran into these parts last year online, he was saying in his eBay auctions that he was getting out of the parts replication game because of all the flack he was taking for it, which was a real shame because I'd never found anybody else replicating parts for the Buck Rogers Starfighter. Nobody. I mean, and the parts for these are very hard to find. And there aren't enough to go around, and everybody loves the design of the Buck Rogers Starfighter, so everybody wants a complete example of this in their collection that I've run across. And he does a great job with these parts, and so I bought, you know, he said he wasn't making any more of these, and I said, well, just send me an entire grouping of parts for a Buck Rogers Starfighter. And he said, yeah, I think I've got one whole set left I can send you. And so he did, and I appreciate that. And so I paid for them and got them here. But it's a shame because these are invaluable resources for us to have. And the more guys like him who are run off, the fewer options we're going to have. Now, that means that the purists are going to be dancing in the street, and they're going to think, you know, this is great. But in the end, it's really not, because, oh, we have a question.
Your thoughts on the news about a standalone Snake Eyes G.I. Joe movie?
My thoughts about the Snake Eyes G.I. Joe movie. The last two G.I. Joe movies were pretty bad. I don't know if another one's advisable. I wish them luck. That's all I'm going to say. But
do you think he won't talk the entire movie?
I hope he doesn't talk the entire movie. I hope the whole movie is silent interlude.
That would be awesome.
So yeah, it's a real shame that more guys like him are getting run off, because as these toys get older, we're going to need these services. And I know with 3D printing, the services might have a resurgence, but it's a shame that right now they're being suppressed, and I hope that changes. All right, so we have the landing gear piece, and we have the bottom half of the Starfighter. So what I'm going to do is coming up from the bottom with this T-joint right here. Let's see how I can show you this. I'm going to take this and I'm going to bring it through, and then I'm going to turn it. If I can get it to turn. There we go. Turn it, and then I'm going to set it in these teeth. All right, so now that is where it needs to be, and as you can see, it folds up nicely that. We are going to put this back together and then put the rest of the parts on.
Well, the first thing somebody's going to say is that's much whiter than the plastic.
Yes. Melinda just told me that she was expecting somebody to say that this piece is whiter than the plastic. Again, my priorities are as follows. First, make it work. Make it functional. If it's functional, I'm happy. If the colors match, bonus. But it's hard to find a complete and functional Buck Rogers Starfighter. So I'm already ahead of the game. You could even argue that the whiteness of the plastic of these parts versus the thank you, Rebecca, appreciate that. She found the other screw. The whiteness of the plastic of these parts versus the original hull, that is going to help just make it obvious that this is a reproduction part, which the purists are supposed to appreciate. So, you know, you can't have it both ways. I'm personally just thrilled that somebody out there made these parts and made it possible for me to have a second Starfighter, because I had this hull, this shell, just sitting in a box for years because I wasn't going to throw it away, but I certainly wasn't going to display it. And I have a Buck Rogers and a Wilma Deering, and both Buck and Wilma deserve to have their own Starfighters, so now they do, or will in a second. All right, we're almost done putting this back together.
Say thank you to Sherman Eagles for giving us $2.
Oh, I've just found out that Sherman Eagles gave us $2. I really appreciate that, Sherman. Thank you so much for the donation to the channel.
And then Marcella's Toy Room is the one who asked about the Snake Eyes movie, and he also gave us $5.
Oh, Marcella's Toy Room, they asked about the Snake Eyes movie, and apparently they also donated $5 to RetroBlasting. I'm always blown away when things like that happen on the live stream. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Every single dollar that goes into this venture goes back into more videos. I'm working on Chuck Norris Part 2 right now. So that'll be done soon as well. Hopefully, I think next weekend we'll have that finished.
You let me know when you're ready for questions.
Yeah. I'm ready for questions.
Do you know of anyone selling inexpensive Repro G.I. Joe weapons and backpacks? Because the originals are super expensive.
Reproduction G.I. Joe weapons. The first thing I would recommend before you go after reproductions, I have noticed on the G.I. Joe toy collecting groups on Facebook and online, there are a lot of people who they can't seem to get rid of the weapons pack weapons, and I know that those weapons are the wrong colors, but they're official Hasbro, and a lot of them are the weapons from the early waves of figures. And you can get them for pennies on the dollar compared to the originals. So if you're looking for repros, quote unquote, of these weapons, I would highly recommend trying to find the weapons pack versions first, because you'll get legit vintage Hasbro stuff to go with your figures, and it'll serve the same purpose.
When it comes to broken pegs, like with the Kenner Death Star, do you recommend buying new ones or gluing them back together if you have the broken pegs?
For broken pegs, as I said earlier, if you have the broken peg and you can epoxy it back on cleanly, then I would try that first. Creating a peg is going to require some kind of plastic material. I've never attempted that. I would be interested to see someone do that. So,
Chris Smith just gave us $20 and said, "Love what you guys do."
Chris Smith, thank you. I just found out that Chris, you $20? Like I don't even know what to say. This is just my little puppet show here. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yeah, like I said, every dollar goes back into making more videos. So, and not these videos. These videos, as you can see, are more casual and low tech. I'm talking about the Chuck Norris videos, or not Chuck Norris videos, but the feature videos. Yeah, we're just doing Chuck Norris videos from now on. It's going to be a Chuck Norris channel. This is going to be the channel that can slam a revolving door. All right, so
at what point do you deem a toy not worth trying to rescue or restore?
At what point do I deem a toy not worth trying to rescue? I try and make sure that no toy gets left behind. There are some toys, though, like the ones with the Battle-matic arms and things like that. When those things break, like the friend of mine, Juan, the guy that I did the snowspeeder for, he sent me. Yeah, he sent me a Lion-O, and the Lion-O's missing his Battle-matic arm. There's no way to fix that. I still have the Lion-O, but I can't fix it, and it's too far gone at this point. So I keep him around. I've actually used that Lion-O in a video or two, but yeah, it's unfortunate that some of these things they're just irreparable.
Matthew Auclair gave us $3.
Matthew, thank you for the donation. Appreciate it. As always, I appreciate all the clicks and the views and everything like that, because every time you guys watch our videos, we get a little bit of a kick from our friends at YouTube, and then we can keep going. The real trick with, I was at a convention this past weekend called Wholanta. It was a Doctor Who convention, but there was a panel on podcasting, and they were talking about, you got to do it for the passion. You can't do it, to try and earn money. And I agree, you have to do it for the passion. All this is passion driven, but there comes a certain point as the audience continues to grow, and you guys have been amazing, and you've continued to grow this channel through word of mouth, that the channel's needs become so great that the channel has to find a way to run under its own steam. Not as a for-profit machine, but just because we've got the cameras and the studio and the lighting and the equipment that needs to be replaced when it wears out and all that kind of stuff.
Vintage toys.
And the vintage toys that have to be found and sourced to make quality videos, that the channel has to find a way to earn just enough money that Melinda and I can still, with our day jobs, save enough money to have a retirement too. Because right now this is an operation. It's a big operation, but all of us are running it together. So that's my hope, is that it eventually runs under its own power. And so everybody who's been generous both with their time watching these videos and in these live streams, donating a dollar or two here and there, we're just so humbled. No idea.
Thanks, Dan Electro.
Did Dan Electro just make a donation? Wow. You know what I feel like right now? I feel like
you should do a song and dance.
I feel like the evangelist in License to Kill, he's like, thank you so much for your donation. I feel like that guy, and then I'm waiting for Timothy Dalton to bust in and shoot me. All right, so now we're going to get the rest of the pieces on this thing. So,
two quick questions.
Oh, no problem. This is a Q&A, so.
Sporticus wants to know two things.
Okay.
Number one, are these LEDs and are they safe?
Okay.
And any ideas on how to restore chrome?
Oh, okay. Sporticus, thank you for the questions. One, questions about these LED lights. They are LEDs. I got them from a great company called Dawson Jones Retail Fixtures in Norcross, Georgia. They do have a website. They prefab these for these cases that they sell, which was really convenient. LED lights are essential because they give off the lowest amount of UV, if any. You don't want UV lighting, because that's how, I knew a lot of guys in the 90s that would display their toys, and they ended up displaying them in jewelry cases with fluorescents from back in the day, and then all their stuff discolored because the fluorescents just pump out UV, which isn't good.
You also don't leave these lights on.
And I don't leave these lights on all the time. These lights are only on for get-togethers that I have here at the studio, and then these live streams for the most part, and any filming that we do. So yeah, most of the time it's just the overhead lights. And then what was the second question?
How do you restore chrome?
How do I restore chrome? It's funny, the guy that donated...
R5D4 video.
Yeah, well, that's one method. So the guy that donated the Palatoy Death Star to us, William Kilford, he and I have been friends for a few years, and he also sent me his original Meccano manufactured R2D2, which needs serious restoration. Now, when we did Timothy Ward's R5D4, we used All-Clad 2, which is a special airbrush paint for modelers who need to recreate the aluminum finish on aircraft. And we use that for the neck collar of the R5D4. Now, when it comes to R2D2, it gets a little dicier, because R2D2's chrome dome is, his dome is all chrome. And then he's got blue and red paint on it as well. I have not yet found a solution for that. Now I know that Dave Moss at Toy Polloi uses a chrome pen for some things. He uses a variety of methods. I've been talking to some friends of mine named Thomas Guerra and Benjamin Elgar, who are great toy restorers in their own right. They've got some methods that I'm going to be exploring to restore Williams R2-D2. But as yet, I haven't found a silver bullet to restore chrome. So I'm working on it. What?
Tonatia.
I didn't see it. Oh, thank you for the $20 donation, Tanatya. Appreciate it. I'm blown away. I cannot believe. I can't believe this. I'm so used. Look, guys, I'm so used to being like on my own, like my own free agent, and just slugging it out by myself. So I really appreciate this. I'm blown away. I'm floored.
Sherman Eagles gave us 10 more bucks.
Sure, Sherman, thank you. Thank you for the donation.
Competing with each other. He's got a question.
Oh yeah.
Will you ever have? I'm sorry. Will you ever, or have you ever restored a droid's A-wing? My motor does not turn on mine, but I don't want to risk disassembling it.
Sure. Yeah, I have a droid's A-wing right here that I actually got the motor working for. You can disassemble a droid's A-wing safely and get the motor working. I'll try and make sure to do a video that walks through that soon so that you'll have a how-to on how to do that. It's not terribly hard. So yes, you can do it.
Jackie Chan 6500 Jr. just gave us $10 and says, "Love your channel, keep up the good work. Thundercats will always be racist porno kids."
Jackie, first of all, I think it's awesome that Jackie Chan is on our site. Second of all, I love Jackie Chan. Third of all, thank you for the donation. Appreciate it.
Your cousin Jake gave us $14.99.
My cousin Jake gave me $14.99.
I like the $14.99. That's pretty great.
So, Jake, you shouldn't have done that, but thank you. I appreciate it, man. Love you always. Jake is the guy, he's not only my cousin, but he's also the guy that helped me restore the DeLorean years ago. And I wish that he lived closer so we could keep working on that car together. Jake was immensely helpful in helping me restore the DeLorean. And he and I still probably laugh about the fact that his muscles are exponentially larger than mine. So, all right. Any other questions that we've got before we move on with this resto?
We'll save them.
Okay. All right, so now that we have the landing gear in place, we got to get this guy on his feet. And his feet aren't actually feet because the Starfighter doesn't have any rear landing gears. The Starfighter has these lower fins that go on the bottom. There are two square holes on either side of the bottom of the Starfighter that these fins slot into. And the fins are keyed, so one of the posts is bigger than the other. One of the pegs is larger. So they really just slot in from the bottom. Wait, what's going on?
We got another donation. Fox Mulder. Oh, Fox Mulder!
Fox Mulder is donating to us?
Yeah, $15.
Really? Well, I believe. Thank you.
I want to believe.
Thank you for the donation. I really appreciate that. I can't believe this. Okay, so
I wonder if YouTube's going to take 50%.
You'll notice. All right, so you'll notice that the fins sort of sit in place like this. I probably need to find a way to do like a light dot of either wall, that poster putty on the ends. To make them sit in there without falling out, because otherwise gravity just brings them out. But for the purposes of this, we're just going to get these both in here. These are reproduction fins from Hot Dog. And we're going to set this on its landing gear like that. Can you see that okay? Mm-hmm. All right. He also created this beautiful canopy piece. I mean, every single detail is on it. Looks great. And if you don't want that raw plastic look, I'm sure you could go ahead and, what do you call it? Spray paint it white or something like that. And like all the canopies of the 70s, that just kind of clips into the top here. I mean, it's an exact fit. It's a precise fit. Yes, I know the white is contrasting with the more pearl color of the plastic, but again,
It's kind of cool. It showcases what parts were broken and
Yeah.
didn't last.
I think it looks good. Like, I'm gonna have to
The
figure.
original stand out more.
All right, so the rear engine pieces, these were notorious because these are reproductions from hot dogs. These are notorious because these would split. On my actual fully authentic Starfighter, which is in the case over here, these have split. One of them has split, and they were very thin plastic. They were this color, so these are the correct color. These are made out of a solid resin material, possibly 3D printed. They might have been resin molds. They might have been poured molds. But I can even see on here, I don't know if you can get a close-up of this, the ones that he had to use had a crack in them as well. So he put them back together, sealed the crack, and then made a mold off of it.
Justin Welch's.
Oh, Justin Welch's. Yeah, I know Justin.
$20.
$20, Justin. Thank you, man. I appreciate it, and thanks for watching so many of our videos. So you can see that he even made these off of split ones. It's because the materials Mego made just weren't good, and the design was a little flawed. So these just cover the rear engine mounts like this, and you can see this thing is really coming together. So I'm going to flip this around. So now we can see the front. These are the last two pieces that have to go on this. They are the front cannons. You remember those teeth from the Starfighter. Now, you'll notice that I have three here. These two are the hot dogs reproductions. They're both uniformly colored. And I had those in anticipation of this resto. But then just a week or two ago, I got this really nice email from a longtime subscriber of ours named A.G. Devitt. And A.G. said that he found one of the...
Chris Gatliff, sorry.
Chris Gatliff gave us...
$2.
Thank you, Chris, for the donation. I appreciate it. A.G. found his favorite toy growing up was the Starfighter. And in his attic, he found the last surviving piece of his Starfighter was one of these nose cannons. It's the only piece he had left, and he didn't even know it existed until just a few months ago. And he wanted to donate it to the RetroBlasting archive, but he wasn't sure if we could use it. And I said, well, we actually have a Starfighter here that needs some TLC, and I said I would be honored to put an original nose cannon back on this Starfighter because it literally had nothing original left except the shell. So what I've decided to do is hold one of these repros over, even though the color is going to be a little different. If I can put as many original pieces back on this thing, I'm going to. And we're going to put AG's childhood nose cannon back on this Starfighter for display. So I'm going to set that on there very carefully because we don't want it to split. Perfect fit from the factory. And then we'll put one of these repros on here. And that's the whole thing. This is the full Starfighter at this point. It does need some better stickers, but this Starfighter was literally in a box of shells. It was a lot of eBay junk that I got years ago, and now it's a phoenix risen from the ashes. It suddenly has that amazing design back to it again, which is why I'm in this game. You know, I'm not in it for investment. I'm not in it to try and make a bazillion dollars off somebody else. I think that's, I just don't think that's the reason to be into this kind of stuff, at least for me. And that's why I love seeing these things come back together, much like restoring a car or something like that. I just like seeing it function again. So this is a now complete Mego Starfighter from Buck Rogers in the 25th century, which is pretty cool. And we're going to make sure that we send you some photographs when we get the stickers redone and clean up the hull and things like that. It's going to look nice. Do we have any other questions from everybody?
I'm trying to scroll back through.
Oh, sure.
If you guys have me feeling out. Okay.
Tons of good compliments saying they love our channel, think we are one of the best value channels out there.
I appreciate that. Thank you for that.
3D printing for toy restoration, godsend or easy way out?
3D printing for toy restoration. I think it's going to be a godsend at some point. I don't see the point of creating a challenge for yourself. I mean, it's kind of like saying, well, I don't want to use a power drill. I'd rather use one of those hand things on making a dresser. Well, what's the added value of doing that? You just want to spend more time on it and get a less accurate drill hole. If you're trying to do a repair and you want to do it right and you can do it to the exact measurements and specifications of that part, then I think that's worth your time. I mean, that's worth the method that you're using. So 3D printing, I think the sky's the limit on it. We're going to see a lot of rare parts finally come back exactly as they need to be made with that, especially with like some of the transformers where the metallic infused plastic just shatters. Imagine being able to reprint those body panels with the screw holes and everything exactly with a more durable plastic. That's exciting.
Victorian Sword donated $4.99.
Thank you, Victorian Sword, for donating.
And they're asking about preserving rubber tires.
Preserving rubber tires. That's a tough one because I have a lot of mask vehicles and I have my Play School Bigfoot and a number of other things with the Bigfoot truck, and some of the Transformers that have rubber tires that are starting to, and the GoBots that dry up and flake off. The best way to preserve that right now is a combination of climate control combined with, from what I've heard, rubber preservative. It's like either a spray or a gel that you put on the tires. I have also heard that if you're, depending on what you use, you might want to keep it away from the chrome hubs because the chrome might rub off from the chemical you're using to preserve the rubber. But I guess that all depends on what product you're using. That's also something where you have to do that cyclically. It's not something where you spray it on once and then you walk away for another 20 years. You're going to have to do that all the time. So I would be real careful about putting yourself on a schedule. For me, I'm hoping for the day where we get repro tires. I want repro tires because, you know, that's going to be the real solution.
Asking about, do you have any recommendations on how to repair heat damage?
Oh, recommendations for heat damage. It's funny because we have a heat gun here that can actually help repair warped plastic parts that, you know, you might want to get back into original alignment. But heat damage, you talking about like where it was up against a radiator or something like that?
He had Superpowers, he said, had some heat damage on it.
Is the heat damage melted plastic? Because melted plastic is really hard to repair. If anything, it'll be like it would almost be like a putty fill, sand and spray over. You would have to sand down the edges and then fill in the depression, and then it sounds like a lot more time-intensive work than it would be worth. Oh, Mark, thank you for the donation. How do you get rid of the yellowing back to white? What you have to do is you have to use a hair product called Salon 40.
Depending on what kind of
plastic it is, but most plastics respond to the Salon 40 method, which is it's almost like a hair bleaching paste, and then you have to put it on with gloves, and then you have to wrap the plastic part in like saran wrap to keep that salon gel moist, and then you have to put it out in direct sunlight for a while or under a UV lamp so that UV will react with it and re-whiten the plastic. The problem with the method is whether you're talking Salon 40 or you're talking RetroBright, which we document in our X-Wing restoration video, whether you're talking about any of these processes, it is always likely, I shouldn't say likely, it is always possible that the plastic will not respond permanently to the re-whitening and it will go yellow again and possibly even more yellow than it was before and faster. So just keep that in mind. There aren't any permanent solutions to time. You know, you can get all the plastic surgery in the world, but you're still going to look like a 70-year-old freak with like your skin pulled back. Just keep that in mind. There is no silver bullet solution to this.
Is there a good place to get clear figure protective cases from?
A good place to get clear figure protective cases. There are a number of places online. I think there's a company called Star Cases. Is that right? Don't quote me on that, but there is a company that does the clamshells for the figures, and then there's the even cheaper solution. You can get acid-free baggies to put the figures in. You buy those in like lots of 500 or whatever for $14 or something like that. You can get those acid-free bags online as well.
Do you prefer mechanical or paint restoration? I prefer paint.
Mechanical or paint restoration? Oh, what I prefer to do? Melinda loves the paint work. I love the mechanical stuff. I like getting things working again. Melinda likes getting them looking really great again.
There's one great question.
Okay.
They didn't say Visionaries, but they did say, what about toys that had holograms? Can you get repro holograms or repair a hologram?
Oh, holograms. I have heard toys with holograms on the front. I know that like with the heat, the heat sensitive things like the Transformers and the Battle Beasts, I have heard that there are people trying to recreate those thermal stickers. As far as the holograms go, I haven't done a lot of research into that yet because I haven't had a need. But holograms and what's going on?
Cthulhu Chow gave us $5 again. He's given to us before, and he says, "Has this dating site worked for anyone here yet?"
Cthulhu Cow, thank you for the
Cthulhu Chow.
Cthulhu Chow. Sorry.
Like
thank. Yes,
Cthulhu.
I'm sorry. I'm talking fast. Thank you for the donation. I would like to think that this dating site has worked for some people, but I know that
It certainly worked for us. I'm not only a hair club member, but I'm also the president. Wait.
so yeah. But as far as the sticker thing, the hologram thing is concerned, you can see my crew is having a lot of fun today. As far as the sticker question is concerned, I have not yet seen holograms get recreated, but I have no doubt that there are people working on it right now. Holograms and lenticulars, like the sticker on the front of the bats in G.I. Joe or Cyclone from Masters of the Universe. I haven't seen reproductions of those, but I'm sure they're out there, or at least in the works. And if they're not actively in the works, I'm sure someone's done a special run of them. So.
Brad Fife gave us $5.
Brad, you're the man. Thank you for the donation. And if you don't know Brad is one of the funniest people on Facebook. He makes me laugh every day, probably like 3 or 4 times a day, because that guy has wit that's endless. So Brad, thanks for all the entertainment. I hope I've reciprocated in kind with the videos that we've done, and I hope to trade messages with you again tonight.
Hey, Michael, is a dog's mouth cleaner than a human's?
Is a dog's mouth cleaner than a human's? Well, the urban legend says yes. I'm going to say I'm still not going to kiss a dog.
Thanks. Should we tell them about the Patreon?
Sure. Yeah.
It'll be this weekend.
My crew is prompting me here. They're telling me.
We're dropping stuff on him. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
So.
Sorry, not sorry.
When are we doing that again?
Now I'm going to do it this weekend.
Okay, so
after this.
Apparently
it's their fault. You guys asked for it.
Okay, so Melinda's saying it's your fault. You all asked for it. Apparently Melinda and Tim and Aaron and Rebecca have all decided unilaterally that RetroBlasting will launch a Patreon this weekend. I didn't even know that. I'm sitting here like, So for all of you who've been so supportive and so generous, and you've asked me for the last 6 years, please tell me how I can help. I guess they finally looked at me and said, Michael, you have to give them an option because you haven't given them an option. So yeah, according to my crew just now, we're dropping a Patreon for RetroBlasting officially this weekend. So, and Tim is giving me the 2-minute warning. So
Palumbo wants to know, will you sing at the end of this telethon like Jerry Lewis?
Will I sing at the end of this telethon like Jerry Lewis? It's not unusual to be loved by anyone. No, I'm not going to. But you wouldn't want to hear that.
Did you want me to?
Yeah, keep doing questions until we run out of time.
Is it cheaper for you to restore figures or buy new ones?
Cheaper to restore figures or buy new ones. I have found that it's more fun to restore figures where you can swap the parts out and you know when you see it that you could fix it. If it's something like a Superpowers figure or a Thundercats figure with that mechanical arm broken, I move on to something else, because customizers love them because they can make them static, with the right arm or something like that and paint it all up. But me, I'm just like, no, I'm moving on to something that's intact.
Do Y-Wings have come apart in separate pieces? That's from Willie Woodward, who gave us $5.
Willie, thank you for the donation. Y-Wings, we have an entire video series about the Y-Wing restoration that we did. So I think you'll learn a lot if you watch that. Please go watch that series because it'll tell you everything you need to know about the Y-Wing.
This person wants to know your thoughts on people who spend crazy amounts of money on Star Wars, Lily Letty, or IGA Transformers.
People who spend crazy amounts of money on Star Wars and Transformers and the Lil Letty stuff. I think, you know, everybody has their passion, and all these things are going up in value. So if they want to spend their money on it, I think that's great. It helps keep everything preserved and in circulation. So yeah, absolutely.
Last question.
Last question.
What are you going to do with all the donations you got today?
Oh, what am I going to do with all the donations I got today? Well, first of all, I didn't realize that I was doing a telethon. Thank you. But I'm going to take those donations, and they're going to go toward maintaining the equipment, and we've got some equipment we've got to buy. We have to buy another one of these lav mics.
We should use it to buy a new lav mic.
We have to buy another one of these lav mics, and they're very expensive. We also have to buy some more lighting that's more portable. We're also trying to get another camera because we're moving into the 4K age. So we want to get another camera to stay somewhat current. So all those things are going to go into the running of the channel. Nobody's about to go out and, you know, have drinks at the bar with the money that was donated tonight. It's all going toward a business. RetroBlasting, just so you know, RetroBlasting is an LLC. We did that to just protect our content. But that means that it also has its own account. So this money is not going into Michael French's personal bank account or Melinda's personal bank account. This money is going into RetroBlasting's business and operating revenue account. So thank you very much.
Any questions we didn't get? Remind everybody of Facebook.
Yes.
Those questions there.
Yes, I don't know if you heard Tim, but if there are any questions that didn't get answered, I apologize. I didn't realize this was going to be such an active live stream. Thank you for making it that. If you still want to get your question answered, you can email us at retroblasting@gmail.com. Always happy to take messages. Or you can hit us up on the Facebook page through the private message or a post on the RetroBlasting Facebook page. Again, I've been given that the time is up for today's live stream. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for supporting the channel for the last 6 years, for being here. I'm really blown away, and I'm working on Chuck Norris Part 2, and then we're going to be doing the feature.
I want you to get on camera and say hello.
We're gonna be doing the feature of Buck Rogers in the 25th century with Tom Burgess from I Grew Up Star Wars. Right after we finish Chuck Norris, and we're also going to be finishing The Flag with the big review video. So watch out for those. So thanks again.
Jump on camera.
Oh, is Melinda jumping on camera for a second? Melinda's on camera, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Thanks for tuning in. We're really blown away by all these donations, so thanks a lot,
Thank
guys.
you so much. We'll see you guys on the next live stream, and we'll see you on the next video.